What's something you only understand if you have lived it? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. Chronic pain. You've experienced pain before, so you think you get it, but nothing prepares you for when pain becomes your new baseline normal. And working full-time requires all free time to be spent resting in order to have the strength to get up and battle through another day or week. Then you deal with the guilt of being too ill to spend much time enjoying life with your partner, friends, family, and they just can't understand why you are always unwell or always need to rest. If I don't get sufficient rest at the weekend, I inevitably end up too ill at some point in the next week and have to take a day off. I can't do that often, or it will affect my job. I've worked too hard to build my qualifications and career to do that. Life is just work and rest and pain. Not really anything else, because I don't have the strength to have a life outside of working. Story 2. One thing that's hard to truly understand unless you've lived it is the experience of deep grief. Whether it's losing a loved one, going through a major life change, or dealing with any kind of profound loss. The emotions that come with it can be incredibly complex and overwhelming. It's more than emotions, and that's the part that you don't get until you're in it. It's weight gain or weight loss. It's developing an anger problem or completely withdrawing from the world until you're yelling at yourself in the mirror. It's becoming physically unhealthy because you don't care about your own survival or quality of life anymore. It's pushing everyone away because your brain tells you that humans hurt. It's hurting those you love because you're hurting. It's those and so many other things that you don't expect when you experience grief. Story 3. Yeah, I came here to say this. I spent 3 years of my life in Iraq and Afghanistan. That initial shock of feeling like you are in real mortal danger is nothing I experienced before. But after a while, you get used to getting shot at and it becomes normalized. As long as they miss, who cares, you know? But if I was on the receiving end of US artillery, I wouldn't be here to talk about it. And that's terrifying. I remember one morning in Afghanistan I was woken up by machine gun fire. I was a bit pissed off, mostly because that's not an alarm clock you can snooze. So I just rolled over and went back to sleep, hoping that the constant would eventually stop. I can sleep through anything. I was once on a field exercise where we fired 106 rounds of artillery overnight, and I slept through all of it. Story 4. Poverty. I agree with this. I have friends that grew up middle class that talk about growing up in poverty. I'll ask, "Did you eat every day?" They say, "Of course." And my response is, our ideas of poverty are very different. I grew up in a weird black hole of growing up in a wealthy suburb, but suddenly finding myself in a desperately bankrupt single-parent home as an only child, with a mother suffering from paralyzing depression, which I couldn't understand. We handled it by concealing our poverty. I didn't even know there were safety nets out there for people in our situation. I would just go without food, so many days without food. I learned how to invite myself to my friends' houses so I could stay for dinner. Those were my only meals. My mom would go on dates when she could to get her own meals. We borrowed what we could, sold what we could, did as many odd jobs as I could for cash until I was 13, and then got a real job, all to put food on our table. Personally, I don't think you know poverty until you think about how to obtain food like an alcoholic trying to get their next bottle. Poverty to me is living with the obsession to find the next meal. Story 5. Long-term hospital stay. I was in for over 6 months waiting for multiple organ transplants, sharing a room with loud, crazy, inconsiderate people and their visitors. It was a gastrointestinal ward, so we all had buckets on the toilet for them to check our output. One woman's daughter starts yelling down the hall how terrible I am that her mother has to deal with my urine on the floor. That sent me. Made it sound like I pissed the floor when it was in a container. I couldn't stop crying. They switched my room, and one of the aides told them I was leaving because they made me cry. Lots of things like that. The upside was I got to know everyone from the porters to the kitchen crew, and they'd make it more fun. I tried to be a good patient and not complain, but it destroyed me mentally. I almost died a few times. It was near the children's hospital, and I'd see the kids outside playing. Talking with a nurse about it, I learned that a lot of parents left their kids and never came back because they couldn't deal with it. I wish I never heard that. Story 6. Psychosis. This one. I've had psychosis episodes that were so bad I couldn't recognize what another person was like. I had no literal idea what people were. I was so gone, I couldn't even comprehend English, my native language. It was just gibberish when people were talking to me. I had to stop driving altogether after psychosis made me see my hands on backwards while driving, and it freaked me out so bad I almost couldn't pull over to let my husband drive. And that's not even talking about the constant paranoia of being watched, or the never-ending thoughts that I'm going to be abducted by aliens, that sort of thing. Psychosis is a horrible thing to live with. Story 7. I still can't believe it happened to me. I've never had a history of mental disorders or anything. I had 2 episodes in 6 months, most likely postpartum psychosis or PTSD induced. My husband was ordered out of the house for abusing us right after I had my baby, so I was extremely stressed. The first episode, I thought it was the end of the world and the nurses were angels. I thought Armageddon was happening outside my hospital window. I didn't come out of it for 2 weeks. The second one was right after I had to file for a restraining order against my ex-husband. I think I see the pattern. I thought my children were going to be taken into a satanic cult by the police when they came to take me to the hospital. The whole way to the hospital, I thought I was fighting satanic pedophiles. I still remember it all too. So many more crazy details. There's a line from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but it's the truth even if it didn't happen. Story 8. Cancer. Especially when you are diagnosed young. My entire life has changed. My body, my personality, my relationships. I'm not the same person I was before cancer at all. All the awful side effects from treatment. The anxiety about recurrence and potentially dying young. Constantly questioning why I got it. Worrying about money and being able to work. It all just really sucks. I'm grateful I caught it early, but I'm still angry and bitter to have gone through this so young. Story 9. Migraine headaches. I have had a few that were so severe, I wasn't sure how I was going to get through it. Sound hurts, lights hurt. The pain becomes blinding, and eventually I start to pant like a dog. I've had to leave a social gathering and work a few times due to a migraine, and wasn't even sure if I would be able to make the drive home. People who have never had a migraine tend to be dismissive of it like it's a normal headache and treat you like you're a drama queen. Story 10. Being poor. People think that it's as easy as just working and saving up. But you have to deal with lost opportunities because you're either busy with work or you don't have the money. You may spend hours stressing about something like budgeting or what to pay for and what to leave, which doesn't actually get you anywhere in life. You're just barely keeping yourself afloat. You work your ass off to get paid less than someone who has a much easier work life than you. What you would do to get ahead isn't what you're able to do because those things cost money or require you to make less money, such as going to school or doing training. Story 11. Having a narcissistic parent, and then having to listen to everyone call basic manipulative people narcissists like they're even remotely comparable. It's an incredibly isolating experience to have undergone abuse by someone that everyone else sees as the epitome of greatness. Because what folks don't understand is that everyone loves a narcissist. They're fun, charming, and oh so kind to everyone, except those they let that front down to. A narcissist isn't going to throw tantrums, punch holes in the walls, or scream at you in front of your friends. They're not going to cry and threaten themselves when you try to leave. They're too self-important for that. Their methods are much, much worse. Story 12. Chronic illness and disability. It's amazing how opaque the barrier is, too. 6 months ago, I broke both my feet and was wheelchair-bound for 3 months. My family looks at me like I'm crazy every time I mention that I am truly, truly grateful for the perspective as an otherwise healthy, able-bodied person. Setting aside a lot of obvious stuff, like not being able to drive, or even get to my second-story apartment, there is so much I didn't truly appreciate until it was my reality. There are good and bad days, and they're rarely an indicator of future trends. Sometimes you hurt because it's a bad day, and there's no agency or control there. It just is how it is. Being in chronic pain is so mentally taxing, in a way that makes it isolating because you can't just say, sorry, I was a bit foggy or short-tempered or stupid today. Too much of my brain's runtime got gobbled up by, holy freaking crap, my feet hurt so bad. Chronic illness does not give a freak how tired you are. I broke down crying several times, not because I was in pain or I was upset at my misfortune, I was hit in the head on collision by a drunk driver, but because I was just exhausted from being in pain. Or tired both from and of being tired. And those feelings feel unrelenting, inescapable, and like they're going to go on forever. And I think The scariest part for me as I've recovered and gotten stronger and gotten my life back is that even now that I understand it better, there's still so frighteningly little I can do for loved ones who do suffer from chronic illness and disability. I can express my sympathy and ask fewer stupid questions and practice more patience, but they're still sent on a daily basis alone to a place to face a burden I can't help to bear. Story 13. How truly debilitating and lonely severe mental illness is. I will never ever understand why mental illnesses are glamorized. Schizophrenia, especially in severe cases. It doesn't make me special. I'm not seeing a different world. It's not magic. I am terrified. I am alone. I've been taking 13 pills a day since I was 20. You will never know what true, actual, complete disconnect from reality is until you experience it. I forgot to take my medication the morning of a flight, and I'm not sure English could adequately describe the horrors I experienced at my layover in Phoenix as I was withdrawing. And this is going to be forever, the rest of my life. A friend of mine was going through a phase and sort of self-diagnosed themselves with the condition before we met. No hate. This person is one of my best and dearest friends. They're just in a time in their life where they're figuring things out. After experiencing what I was like one day off my meds, they no longer thought they had the condition. How do you live when you hoard trash to the point that your whole apartment is covered with a film of maggots? What about the crap and period blood smeared on the walls that you put there to protect you from the evil you think is coming for you? How do you come back from seeing the people you love with the flesh literally peeling from their faces, revealing their horrible true intentions underneath? What about the scars on the tips of your fingers from chewing the skin off? How do you live when nothing and nowhere and no one is safe? That's the thing. You don't. Story 14. Executive dysfunction. So much so that when I got medicated last year, finally put on ADHD meds after 30 years of trying, I almost forgot what it was like to not have them. My dad struggles with the same things I did, and once I got medicated, I could feel myself losing empathy because I could suddenly do the tasks he couldn't. It was a really weird feeling to navigate. Like all of a sudden I understood why my mom was so frustrated all the time. But I also know without these meds I am incapable of doing many things that I really love to do, on top of the stuff I don't love. Figured out a nice balance in the end, but I had to really work on my patience first. And depression. To be honest, I was so nice when I was my most depressed BC. I assumed everyone else was having as hard a time as I was. Then I started to get better and in real time watched my reactions and assumptions shift. I'm grateful for having been in that low place. If only if it showed me I can never tell what someone else is going through or where they're coming from until I learn more. Story 15. Being raised in a cult. I'm still discovering things that I thought were normal, being wildly abusive, repressive, unacceptable. It's strange having your entire universe upended once you wake up. Escaping a cult is also enlightening in a way many people don't appreciate. It gives you an understanding of the rationalizations from the inside perspective, even as you can see it for the nonsense it is now. Plus, it requires you to reevaluate your belief system in a way I think people are rarely challenged to. Being able to experience doubt, to question, and completely change your mind on once deeply held beliefs is something of a superpower. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your those in the comment below.